Okay, we are live with 2 out of the 4 finance junkies for the 2-minute pre-show before we get into tonight's main course meal.
Just block I bought right away.
Yeah, no mentions of those of the person
those who shall not be named. You will get blocked instantly, by the way. Okay, yeah, Scott, block Scott. We're gonna come down to 30 people on this
the
podcast.
Next person I block, they're gonna end up doing something on Twitter. I can't handle that. So.
Okay, so we were talking about TJ Rogers, right? You had a question or two about TJ, and yes. Do you guys know who TJ is in the comments? TJ Rogers, guy who made Enphase what Enphase is. Today he decided to buy 33,000 shares, his own money, and the only time he buys anything is when he thinks it's a good deal.
33,000 shares of good old Enphase. Why do you think he bought it at $166? Just because you think it's a good deal, or you think there's anything
I think
more?
he does like to show that he supports something, but he doesn't waste his money. He's a smart dude. He's an engineer. He's a business guy. He's buying it because he knows the value of the company. At this price, like I'm saying, it's becoming dumb. At 150, it's moronic. At 110, it's idiotic. Like there's a level of idiocy that happens in the stock market. And we've seen it with Meta. That's the thing. We were there and we didn't go all fucking bonkers. You know, I did a little bit, but you didn't. Yep. And in fact, today I sold some Meta, by the way, my Meta call for Enphase. So I traded up. I made it like around 200% profit on the Meta call. I had at 100 strike. Sold that, bought Enphase.
How much Enphase did you buy today?
I'll tell you guys now. It's another 100 shares. 100 yesterday, 100 today. Probably.
About 20 grand. About 20 grand.
Say it again.
About 20 grand you spent in the past couple of days.
More than that. Each 100 shares is 17,000, 18,000.
Oh, I thought you said yesterday you only spent 11 grand.
No, 18 grand. 18 grand.
Oh, wow. So about 40 grand. Wow.
Yep. And I'm converting different stocks. As I said, I'm going to Meta sucks. F you. F you, Fudbucker. Converting my dividend portfolio next. It's gonna continue. I hope it gets stupid because I have no plan to sell it at $160. It's like some people are rushing out at $160. Like I don't know what you're crazy. Okay, but if you're rushing out, fine. I'm gonna be buying your shares as many as I can. And obviously TJ Rogers, the guy in charge, is gonna be buying your shares.
You know, I'm actually happy I didn't sell at 224 because it's because I don't think I would have bought back in, right? I would have been too scared. This is forcing me to DCA and actually develop a position, which is what matters in 5 years, not the fucking $1,000 I would have made for selling it at 224. And so I'm actually happy. I'm like, yeah, I want to DCA. I want to keep doing it.
Yeah, this is tough to explain and tough for people to gather because everybody's in a different position here. But if you have real belief, and you do have that in Palantir, right? So the lower something goes, if your conviction and your research, it has to be both, and the execution of the company too. Okay, all of these things play into it. If they all match up, and you align, and you see opportunity, and similar opportunities happened with Meta. Similar opportunities happened with, if you remember Tesla back in 2020 when it tanked, right? It ran up and went straight down 70%, 80%. Went to 950, tanked right back down to 350. I don't know if you recall that.
Yep, I remember.
The market gives you these opportunities not often. It's maybe several years, 3 years, 4 years. If you don't take them, then what are you doing? You know what I'm saying?
That is correct. That is absolutely. I'm going to just tweet out that we're live right now.
Am I Tom Nash? Am I supposed to be Tom Nash? Ivan says.
Tom Nash is different.
I'm younger. I'm the younger Tom Nash.
It's crazy because he's younger than you.
That's true, but he does look older. I don't know. I'm going to stick with that.
All right. I'm tweeting out that we are live right now. Live now. Christopher Patel, what's up? How's your day?
Good. Just woke up not too long ago. You know, I had to wake up. I had some trainings to do early this morning, so that was interesting. I looked at the market. I just caught the back half of your conversation. You know, this is what investing is all about. It's buying things that are unloved at really crazy prices and just holding on until things recover. You know, it's what is it just me, or is I'm getting like sound? Like I'm hearing sound.
That's definitely mentality.
I think that's my 3D printer.
Oh, okay.
Why are you 3D printing right now?
Yeah.
Back there, you see it?
What are you 3D printing? Why are you 3D printing something?
I've been 3D printing for days. Apparently, I'm one of the laborers for my kid in his project, and I'm printing a bunch of
Nice.
stuff he's going to be doing for
Then it's
his.
okay. If it's for your kid, it's okay.
It's like
I
a
thought you were printing-
business. He's 10 years old, but it's like a business class, and so he has to make some products, sell them at some fair, and so. But apparently, I'm the guy doing all the actual work.
We'll talk about a little bit of 3D printing too, because there's a couple of good companies that are worth looking into for 3D printing, because it's definitely a sector that had a lot of promise and then dropped off, but there's a lot of key companies in that sector that may end up benefiting a lot. So Scott Killian just
Thank you for
yeah.
the super chat, Scott. Before y'all get into anything, can I get opinions on FRC? FRC went down to $6 today. $100 billion of deposits gone. Any thoughts on the regional bank?
So if you pull up my Twitter thread, like from I think a few months ago, I was trying to tell people like take a look at the numbers. The numbers absolutely made no sense, because this was a client. Do you mind just muting? Because it's just
Yeah, I got.
yeah, there you go.
We finally got him to shut up.
Just for a minute.
Chris,
Yeah. No, I was going to say for FRC, the numbers didn't make sense. You know, they had a lot of deposits. A lot of their client base is very like rich people, a lot of wealthy individuals, who could have taken their money out when necessary, of course. And the rates that they were getting for the investments that they had made were actually very, very low. So it's a matter of just numbers. It just the math didn't make sense. And I know that at times businesses can get a little bit too comfortable with the current situation, and they align themselves to that situation. So FRC fell into the same trap that I think a lot of other regional banks fell into, which was we're always going to have low rates from now on. Like it'll never be a situation where inflation comes back. And when inflation did come back and the Fed had to react, one of the things that happened was this nightmare with businesses not being able to recover. And I think a similar thing is happening in real estate too, depending on which part of the real estate sector you're looking at. Like commercial real estate right now, you know, it's all bought up and built up during times of low interest rates, so a lot of their profit margins are very dependent on the interest rates. They do, unlike the banks, they don't have to worry about the liquidity crunch of people just withdrawing their money. Like that's not how it works. You know, when you're investing in commercial real estate, you have banks, you have maturity walls that you have to contend with, you have refinancing, you have long-term leases. So it's not nearly as traumatic as FRC. But yeah, so I think FRC
Don't
was
buy
genuinely
FRC.
okay.
That's what you're saying.
I would not buy it. Like I told you, like even at this price.
It takes him 10 minutes to get to the don't buy.
Yeah.
I
mean,
friend
you have to have reason. You have to have reasons why you don't buy.
You could
right?
start with you. Hold on. Have you ever learned you
Yeah.
start with the actual conclusion and then prove it? Okay. I didn't know where you were going. I thought I was about to buy. By the way, I was like, all right, this is coming.
Yeah.
It's coming. I'm gonna DCA.
You know, I honestly I could be wrong. I'll be honest. I could be wrong on FRC only because a lot of this stuff is very dependent on how the Fed and the federal government wants to react and do things. Like you think of right now, like what if the Fed tomorrow morning says, you know what, we can't let regional banks fail. We're going to take $50 billion and inject it right into FRC. Okay, now all of a sudden the company is not looking so bad, you know, because now it's got cheap.
Right?
No, I know, but they did it through the other big banks, and they gave them an open window on stuff. But there's still a lot of weaknesses there. Like the amount of people that withdrew their money is the problem. Like there's no one right now putting money back into FRC, and on top of it, the loans that they got from the big banks and from the Fed were expensive loans. They were like 5.5%, 6% loans. They're not the depositor money, which they were giving barely anything on. So you know, it makes no sense. So yeah.
I mean, I have a friend who works at FRC, and he's like a senior director, and he's pretty scared, not only for his job, but he thinks that they're just not getting rich people to come back. Those rich people have moved on. They don't care anymore. And he said it's going to be a while, which is why they announced 25% layoffs as well.
Yeah,
so,
but I mean, just think about it. If you can get 5.5%, 6% fixed treasury, like no risk whatsoever, why would you want to risk it and put it into a bank that might fold? And then you end up having to become a creditor to it, you know, like, and deal with the headache of that. Like, no, it doesn't make sense. Most people would rather, especially when you get to certain wealth levels, to protect your wealth. You're not going to try to take a risk and put it in something that that could possibly fold. So yeah, I wouldn't touch FRC, and for that matter, I wouldn't touch a lot of regional banks, to be honest with you. Not until I do really some deep diving and homework into what kind of capital base that they have. Do they have how much of their total depositor base is concentrated? If it's not concentrated, like where is it exactly? Like what kind of terms does it have? What kind of what kind of holdings does it have in terms of treasuries? How far out are those treasury holdings? Because that's the other thing too, right? So if you bought treasuries, but you bought the 20-year and 30-year when it was yielding like I think what 2-3%, that means that that asset is actually worth a lot less than something like where you have only like a 5-year treasury, right? And you have a whole bunch of notes, but they're really near term maturity. So yeah.
Okay, let's get to the star of the show, Meta. Let's take a quick look at their results and then we'll discuss.
Meta earnings are out. Julia Borston has those numbers. Hi, Julia.
Well, we see Meta shares surging on better than expected top line results. I mentioned earlier that this company was expected to show revenue that declined by nearly 1%. Instead, it grew revenue by about 3%. The company reporting revenue of $28.65 billion versus the $27.66 billion estimated. The company's earnings per share, GAAP earnings per share, $2.20. It's unclear if that's comparable to estimates, but we're going through and checking because there are some restructuring charges. A couple other things here about the outlook. They say they expect the 2023 total revenue to be in a range of $29.5 to $32 billion, so that it is a relatively large range there. But they do narrow the expense range, now saying they expect the full year total expenses to be in the range of 86 to 90 billion. Previously, the top end of the range was 92 billion, bringing that down. Also saying that includes $3 to $5 billion of restructuring costs. Notably, since there is so much attention to this Reality Labs division, which is the Metaverse division, they say we continue to expect Reality Labs operating losses to increase year over year in 2023. Now, in terms of daily active users, that number did come in better than anticipated. The company reporting 2.04 billion daily active users. Analysts had been looking for just 2.01 billion, so better than expected.
Okay, those are some of the main numbers. 3 billion MAUs, 200 million DAUs in North America and Canada, and 1.93 billion or 1.99 billion on Instagram. One final thing, and then I want to get your thoughts. Facebook Q1 Metaverse division made 339 million, 50% below estimates of 613 million. They took an operating loss of 3.9 billion. Analysts thought they would get 3.8 billion. So they're losing more money and making less money on the metaverse, but the ad revenue is phenomenal. The cost cutting is also phenomenal, which is why the stock was up, I think about 6% after hours. Let's go to Chris. Raw thoughts on what you saw from the quarter.
I mean, it wasn't nothing that we didn't talk about yesterday, right? And we've been saying like when it comes to these earnings, especially for big tech with the layoffs, those things are going to eventually play into the bottom line, but it's going to take some restructuring charges. So if you see what they said, the restructuring charges from all the layoffs and all the severance, these employees are not just, you don't just terminate an employee and stop paying them. Like you have to pay out severance. You have to change your leasing strategies on the existing occupied buildings that you have. You have to pay out other things. You usually have to hire some consultants to do some other work. You have lawyer fees that you have to take on because you might get hit with severance lawsuits with employees that are going to file for wrongful termination. All these things, when you're a global company, add up to a significant amount of money, and that's going to take a toll on you in the short term. But like I said, that's something that's easily explainable. Like most investors are going to be happy about Meta right-sizing their employee count, because that's going to yield tangible return in the future. So I think Meta is doing the right thing. In regards to the metaverse, the metaverse is not dead. It's still there as a piece of what Meta was trying to do. But I think that what they're doing is smart, which is realigning their business to their core segments that have always been their money makers. And yeah, they're going to take some short-term hits on it. I mean, that's the name of the game when it comes to like growth and big tech. Like you have to try new things out. And if they work, they could be 20 and 100xers for your business. And if they don't work, they could end up, just being a small road
That's
bump
true.
on
I
the
mean,
way
here's
to
the
your
thing.
success.
If the metaverse doesn't work,
I can't hear you, Amit. You're muted.
oh, can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
He
now?
wasn't muted.
Oh, I was muted.
I also stopped the 3D printer thanks to my producer wife. She said, "Just stop your fucking 3D printer."
She was watching the show. She's
Is
like,
it me or the volume just died?
That's on you, Chris. Yeah.
That's on you, Chris. That's
my
you.
guy. That's you.
Okay, well, the only way we shut up Chris is with a technical difficulty. So, what were you about to say, Amit?
I was just gonna say, even if the metaverse fails, like it doesn't
Okay.
even matter
Let
because
me
it's like Meta will be fine, right? Like, let's say the metaverse actually does fail.
Yeah, it
And
makes
we
no
get-
difference for the company. It's going to be worth $1 trillion based on the advertising that it's doing alone. Okay, and the number of people it keeps growing somehow. Where are they getting these people? Who knows?
It's not going to be worth $1 trillion, dude. Sorry, sorry,
Well,
dude.
of
Like,
course, you came in, you
don't be
brought him in at that
lying.
point.
We
I wasn't done with my
replaced
point.
Chris with Carlos, and Carlos first he gets
not. It's
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Meta
dude.
is a thriving business. Google is a thriving
ads.
business.
Okay,
As long
of
as
ads.
advertising is a thing,
Yeah, it's gonna go
as
to
long
ads.
as hey, let me talk. You don't just come on and fucking just shut me up. As long
No,
as
I'm just
advertising
saying.
is a thing,
Yo, that was the most rockstar baller shit Carlos has ever done. 2 seconds into the case, like, metaverse? $1 trillion? No. That's
yeah, not gonna
I
happen.
just happened to sit down and I heard that.
No, listen. This is a guy who keeps pushing Apple, doesn't own one share of Apple. Okay, I don't get it. But
See how Vitaly gets? Look, he's actually mad.
I'm saying the
He's actually
metaverse,
mad.
the metaverse. Hold on, let me
I'm
skip to the
rage tweeting
metaverse.
now.
The advertising thing alone is $1
getting
trillion
triggered.
business. That's gonna happen. But the metaverse, the reason it's not showing any growth right now, first of all, they're releasing Oculus 3 this year. So let's see what happens when they release it in December or something. If it's a blockbuster hit or if it's not. I'm waiting for the third Oculus with the different pancake
What was the
lenses.
problem with growth this quarter?
In
There
terms of
wasn't a
growth
problem
for
with
Oculus?
growth. It was just they're taking more losses and they're not able to monetize it as well. But I think my point is, look, even if that shit doesn't work, like let's say in 2 years, Zuck is like, you know what, AI is the future, this metaverse thing, we're gonna rebrand back to Facebook or whatever. It's still a fine investment, right? It's still a fine company.
I mean, honestly, if they offered a dividend, I'd buy the company. I just think it keeps pushing itself as a growth company, and it keeps using like more and more nefarious tactics to show growth when it should just be a dividend company. It
Wait,
could
what do
be
you
a
mean
banging.
nefarious?
This is the most stupidest thing to say at all. Is Google a dividend company?
You see, no, but you see, he's like, don't attack people, and he's like, you're stupid.
No, I didn't
he
say
called
you're
your
stupid.
argument
We gotta
stupid.
put
I
a-
said your argument is
Right,
dumb
right,
because
right.
then
Gotta put him in a
Google has to be a
timeout.
dividend company too. Meta's a
No, no.
$300 billion company right now.
No, okay.
Google's a $1.2 trillion company. As long as
Right.
advertising is a thing, Meta's going to do better.
Okay. Yeah, but I just don't think that Meta's going to continue the growth, the user growth numbers. Like Google's different. Google's a search engine. It's different.
keep
It's
saying
different.
Carlos,
It's different
that
data
doesn't
points.
make sense. They don't need to continue user growth in order to grow. If they keep 3 billion people using their shit they barely monetize WhatsApp. Like this is where I don't think you get the Meta story at all. The Metaverse stuff, I think you're correct, but you don't understand Meta at all from a like advertising monetization.
Of course, I understand. That is my business.
So if they
I mean,
so if they haven't monetized WhatsApp and they start monetizing it and it starts printing money, what is your
Well, I'd like to
response?
see how they plan on doing that because
What do you mean? They're already doing it.
I can see how they what do you mean how they monetize?
They already have merchants in Brazil and India that are partnered with them.
I know, but I'm just saying I don't know that story is going to keep going forever. It doesn't just happen. It doesn't just go on forever, and it's not like it happens in.
I think you're right. But you have to have the other person replacing the company. Who is the other? Who's killing Meta? That's the question I keep going back to. Is it Snapchat? You need somebody else there. You need when we talk about who's the before Facebook? What were they called?
MySpace.
Whatever. MySpace.
MySpace, yeah.
At least we had Facebook that came along. And it was a
you know what?
clear. There's a clear trajectory.
Yeah, but
Who
even
is the person killing Meta and all
even-
the advertising? Who is it?
even MySpace, I believe that MySpace would have killed itself with what it
boy.
was doing to try to grow users.
Carlos, I don't get this.
Did you see what MySpace? Did you see
I
what
don't
MySpace
understand that at all.
became at a certain point?
Dude,
Carlos, you're in the media business. You know brands have to advertise.
This guy sends me Instagram links all day long. I don't understand.
You know what? Zuck said
What does
people
that
are sharing Instagram
I'm
reels
saying you're
2
sharing it.
billion times a day.
Okay.
2 billion times a day they're sharing reels with. And Chris knows he gets 17 of them from his wife every day. Right? Like,
Yeah.
I really don't get your argument, Carlos, on the metaverse. I totally agree with you. I think
He
it's
hates
probably-
Zuck. He hates Zuck.
So
No,
there is one downside to the Reels thing, and
You're
I'm
really
pretty
loud,
sure-
Chris.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now? Is that loud?
We heard you. You were loud.
All right. All right. So no, the one big downside to the Reels is the monetization on Reels is actually pretty bad. If you think about how much money that they're, number one, how much money they're actually losing out on by taking away from their actual core business, which was the targeted ads. You can't do as well when it comes to targeted ads with short form video. And they were actually paying a lot of creators to make short form content, which is actually negative for their overall business. So I think that in the war to gain the upper hand on TikTok, they're spending some money to do it, which is good because that's what you have to do. But before, they were spending a lot of money on literally personnel that wasn't adding to their business. So at least now they're in a better place. The one thing is, Meta is also an AI company. Don't forget that. I think a lot of people tend to forget that. Like, Meta's got a large AI presence. Like, if you look at last year, who was the largest consumer of AI GPUs? It was Meta. Meta with their data centers. Meta's a very big AI company that's looks like a social media company, but has a very big AI division. If you really are interested, look up something called TensorFlow. That was all developed by Meta. People at Meta. So
what's the response to that, Carlos? Is it AI is not the future? How do you go against
what? I'm sorry. I just don't see I see what you guys are saying that they've acquired, WhatsApp and Instagram, but I just don't see those things don't last forever. I'm not saying that I know exactly what's going to replace it now. Maybe the thing doesn't exist yet, but I do not see this infinite growth story for a company like Meta. They've just had too many problems, and I think that a lot of their problems are legislative. So we will see. That's all I can say is we will see. But I don't think we should shut. I don't think we should. I don't think we should shut me down just because I disagree with you, Vitaly.
I don't think you disagree with me. I think you hate Zuck. I think that's what it always goes back to. And by the way, just to fix Chris's thing, TensorFlow is by Google. It's not by Meta. You're talking about the open source framework that they use for web applications. I think that's what you're referring to. It's not TensorFlow. Anyway,
is it a PyTorch? I mean, sorry,
PyTorch. Yes. So the other thing. I want to get to the Metaverse for a second. Besides, by the way, I'm positive on Meta finally. So I'm making money again.
You're finally up. You're in the green.
I'm in the green. In fact, I was on the green. I saw a little Meta to buy Enphase because I'm like, okay, I'm up on the calls. I want Enphase more. So now I'm trading off, like I told you guys. I told Emmett at least. Now you guys know. But in terms of the Metaverse, I don't think we're giving it enough time yet to actually happen. Of course, it's going to take a while. But how often
do you use your headset?
Oh my God, you ask me this all the time. Yeah. Every week I use it when I'm not
this
working.
Is what you say to me. How many shares of Apple do you have? Well, how often
I use it every week when I am when I can't actually use it. Right.
Week,
if I'm not working the whole week.
Yeah, never. Right.
That's right.
You don't use it at all, dude.
I'm hanging out in VR chat with 15-year-olds all day long. Okay,
right. Bro, this is the
and
part
that's super healthy, right? That's
no one's
playing Smash
hours. Okay, so here's my thing before you keep continuing. In order for this to replace the iPhone, for Zucks to get out of Tim Cook's grabbing his nutsack, he has to make a new iPhone, and that is his headset. And I don't think I agree with Carlos, no one's spending meaningful time out of their day per day, not per week, per day inside of that thing. Yeah. It will be used in the military, it'll be used for healthcare, it'll be used for gaming. But for average people like us going about our life, we're not wearing a headset. It's just not happening. Not happening.
I think you're wrong on the future.
Apple headset. Even Apple headset, if they have that screen on the front that lets you see somebody.
No one's wearing that shit either, bro. MKBHD is going to be the only person wearing that shit on YouTube. That's it.
To be honest, the only thing that I think people would use is what the form factor of the Google Glass. That was actually the correct form factor. Maybe it was too early, but I would have actually bought that if I started seeing people wear that. Like I saw the white earbuds in 2005 or whatever, when the iPhone came out, when you started seeing the iPod Shuffle white ones, I think I would have picked one up. It just never took off. But I think that's the correct form factor, and we're just not there yet.
Look, we have to wait until at least this year to have a better opinion, because I don't know if you guys are keeping up, but Oculus, the third version, is coming up with the pancake lenses, and if it's going to be around $400 or $500, let's see how well it sells during Christmas. That's going to matter. It needs to do well. It needs to sell units like Nintendo did and sold 100 million units. It has to get there.
Do you think it will? Make a prediction. That's
how many units this
make a prediction. Something.
I think so far they have 10 million. I think so far they have around 10 million units. Maybe Supreme Bag Holder actually would know because he also follows Meta very closely. But I think
what do you think? What do you think it's going to sell this year?
How many millions are they going to sell?
Yeah, like what by Christmas? What do you think the numbers are going to be?
I would love it for it to be a 50% growth. I would love it if they got like 5 million extra units, or at least 3 or 4. I don't know if that's going to happen.
What's the price point?
Questline is 20 million. He says 20 million.
What's the price? What's the Idiots is like the new word for like kick me out of the chat.
Can you kick that guy out of the chat?
That's word like you need a timeout.
Quest line is at 20 million. Quest 2 around 15.
Wait, but Quest that's 20 million total. Right?
Quest 2, so that's what I'm referring to. Quest 2, okay, 15 million. They need to sell, I don't know, up to 5 million, 3 to 5 million, somewhere in that range. If they're not selling enough units, I can agree with you. That's a problem because they need to sell enough of these units.
What's the price point?
It's like $400-500.
But compared to the Quest 1, because I have one.
Well, forget about the Quest 1. The Quest 3 has to be around $400-500, which it will be with pancake lenses, a lot thinner, longer battery life. It's going to be a better device, and it's going to get you closer to like a lighter glasses on your face. So you guys are right about the giant things, but as they get smaller and smaller, it's obvious everyone's going to own one eventually.
No, it's not obvious everyone's going to own one.
It is obvious.
Don't say it's obvious.
It's not.
It's
as
really
long as
not.
it still feels like ski goggles and not like that Google Glass, that one lens, or like your glasses emit. Imagine if they came out with something that was like yours, and they partnered with Prada to have like a nice slick looking glasses that just have like AR augmented in front
and see, they kind of did this with Ray-Ban. They did this with Ray-Ban, but it doesn't have any of the tech. It just has like you can take stupid Instagram stories with it. That's it, right? And Snapchat has this as well. I don't get this headset thing at all, bro. I don't think it's replacing the iPhone at all. Like I don't think
it has to replace the iPhone. I don't think.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. It has to have billions of people using it for the developer system to be so intense.
Yeah,
dude. Once again, I have an Xbox and I have an iPhone. Okay, I have a PlayStation and I have an iPhone. I don't see why it has to. You can't have
no, because the whole point of this is to get out of Apple's control over the hardware, so that they control the hardware and the software.
Okay,
if
even
you're
if
still
they
using the iPhone,
I don't think that has to happen for us to have a multi-bagger here for that to happen. It's $300 billion.
Of course it has to. It has to be the hit.
No, it doesn't have to replace the iPhone. Even the Android did not replace the iPhone. Okay, so you don't need it to replace the iPhone.
But you need people to act. You need enough people that actually use it on a daily basis that warrants the developers developing for it, where they can start to monetize that in the same way that they're monetizing people on the iPhone. He's doing this whole thing so that Tim Cook doesn't have him by the balls anymore.
I understand why he's doing it, and I think he's right for doing it. My point is that it doesn't have to replace the iPhone. You're going to have an iPhone and you're going to have an Oculus. You can walk around with your headset and use your phone too.
No, because if I have an iPhone, I'm going to have Apple's Oculus, not Meta's Oculus.
You're going to pay $3,000 for Meta for Apple's
If
Oculus?
you have an iPhone, would you buy
I have an iPhone.
Would you buy a competitor's smartwatch? Did you buy like a competitor's smartwatch? Or did you get an Apple
great
watch?
Argument. And yeah, people are going to use Macs, they're going to use iPads, they're going to use iPhones. So Vitaly, I agree with you. It's a multi-bagger, but not because of the Metaverse. I think on advertising, it'll get an AI.
Sure.
I'm so curious to see how this plays out, to be honest. This is
we're all curious.
I am but I am, unlike personally and as an investor, I'm really curious to see how this actually plays out. It's a multi-year thing, but we're going to get into
Let me answer Chalk Talk's question because he said the magic word. So this was given to me by a guy named Ken Bohorsky on LinkedIn. I'll probably put his LinkedIn here. Just hit him up and be like, yo, I want the thing you sent Amit.
And it has a mic in it that's recording everything Amit says. Send it right
send it to the CIA. Chris, where did you get your thing from? You ordered it, right? Your Palantir thing?
Yeah, one of my friends who's in the military, he works as an EOD tech. He's actually really into 3D printing. So he offered to 3D print it for me. So I said, okay, yeah, do it, man. So he sent me like a bunch of samples. I actually have a whole bunch of these. I should have actually raffled these off at some point.
What is that, by the way?
It's just a Palantir plastic, what are they called? Like just something that you could put on your desk, you know.
Okay. I just put his LinkedIn in the chat. So check it out. That's a nice Aldia sign as well. Yes, that is Kelly's. He sent me that for my birthday. So that's
does he do that with all companies, or is it just
I think you should show Supreme Bag Holder. This is a big win. The industry will get bigger if more AR VR devices happen, and Apple is going to help that propel that technology. If they release it and they're successful, Meta wins too. Like I said, there has to be a number 2.
So okay. I would think that the technology is one of those things that, you know, things always get faster, smaller, and cheaper, no matter what happens. That's how technology works. So maybe Metaverse right now doesn't fit the exact narrative that you need, but from what I'm seeing, the tech is improving for all the stuff that you need. The key ingredients to make the Metaverse happen are improving. Number 1 is first the connectivity to a lightweight headset. So first, if you think about the size of that fucking headset, that's not going to happen. Like if you think that people are going to buy that giant headset and wear that on their street, it's not. But that doesn't mean that that's what the final form is going to look like. It's just over time, it's going to change. The other thing is we're walking around with fucking mini supercomputers in our pocket now. So all you need now is a strong connection between this and the
low
glasses.
latency. Yeah.
At-
Well, that's
at very-
what the original Apple Watch was that way.
Yeah.
It leveraged the iPhone for most of the processing and just did like, and then they eventually got the tech small
Yeah.
enough where they could miniaturize it.
And I think that's going to be one of the big keys to this, right? Where you also have low power chips. You also need chips that are very low power that can sustain a battery charge for an extended period of time, an extended period of wear. Like, you know, it's one thing to just buy something that you're going to use for an hour or two, but if you're trying to really like do it's 8-hour session, you're going to need something with extended battery life. Battery life is also improving also, and we can talk about Enovics because that's one of the consumer areas that's coming up. But these are the kinds of things I think technology is improving, and eventually things will come up. I do, however, think, and this is where me and you, Vitaly, are probably going to disagree a little bit.
Funny.
Apple's ecosystem is its key moat around this. So
Yeah, I
if
agree.
you think about like the Raycons are what, like 1/20th of the price of a AirPod, but I don't see nearly the amount of people with Raycons and people I see all the time with AirPods, right? So there's something around being loyal to a brand, but then also the ecosystem around it. And yeah, I think Apple does a lot of research on their core product to put it out, and they've actually had a lot more hits than misses. So I'd be very curious to see what Apple comes up with their VR headset, which is supposed to launch sometime later this year.
WWDC.
And seeing
That's June.
the
thing is we need them.
Get.
I'm not saying we don't need them. We don't need
Yeah.
Meta alone doing this. It's not going to work if they're the only ones
Yeah.
doing it. We need Apple. You need Microsoft. You need these Goliaths to make this technology, because small companies are not going to make this technology. It's just too hard. Okay.
Yeah.
In fact, the small company tried to do it and they were bought it out. Google bought them out. I forgot what their name was, but it was another 3D VR. And even then, Google can't make it work properly. It's still taking time.
Yeah.
So you need these Goliaths. You need Apple to get in. You need Apple to drive the prices down as well with Meta. And then you're going to have a market where
Apple drives the prices up.
I know, but let's say they're the premium product. They're going to be, let's say they're the premium. Meta is going to be the Android of the world. We're going to need multiple of these iterations. You can't have one player. Apple's not the only player here. It's ridiculous.
This is what I think. I'll go on record. This is what I think. If and when Apple does enter this whole thing, I think the reason why I think it's bearish for Meta, and it might not be permanently, but in the short term, is because what they're going to do is going to be different, and it's not going to be what Meta's been doing. And I think Wall Street will ask that question: why didn't Meta do this? It's like what's happening even with some EV companies. Like when Tesla does something, they go, "Why haven't the other companies done this? Like, why didn't GM?" This is a question you hear a lot. They go, "You've had the runway, you had the people. Like, why did?" And it wasn't even like you needed a genius. It's just thinking of like the end user and what they would want. And that's why I think maybe it's the short term. It could be for if they announce in June. Let's say they actually start shipping these things in September. It could actually be, say, for the rest of the year. Where that becomes the question. And the real problem is if Meta starts to copy Apple, then they cede first place and they'll never win. So, and I don't know that they can do that. So that's where I think it's going to be. That's where I think the battle's.
Give you an example of a large company. Have you ever heard of the internet? Without DARPA, called the government, you wouldn't have the internet. Ridiculous.
Wait, who says this? Who says it? Can you bring up this comment?
You wouldn't have airplane. Yeah, so ridiculous. A ridiculous.
Give me an example of a technology in the past that needed a large company. I mean, almost every technology needed a large company.
Or the government.
Yeah, but the government is a large company at this point. I mean, really, let's be honest.
Crazy.
You need a huge amount of money. You need someone to deal with the capex and the education of the public, and then you start making money on the back end.
I would say Apple probably needs the metaverse thing to work more than Meta does, believe it or not. And I know that sounds really like way out of the ballpark, but if you think about it, the life cycle of these phones is getting longer and longer for people, right? So not as many people are changing up their phone as frequently, so that's going to impact Apple's bottom line. We're hitting some levels of saturation in terms of phone availability because now smartphones are pretty much everyone's got one, right? So how do you continue to grow if you're Apple? Well, you're going to have to create new product segments. They did that with the watch. That was a whole new product segment. Everyone bought them. That drove growth.
I didn't buy them.
Right?
The watch
well,
sucked.
good for you. I have the watch. I love it.
You don't have
my mom bought me a watch on my 20th birthday and I made her return it. I was like, I'm not wearing this stupid shit.
All
Well,
right,
my kid loves the watch.
congratulations.
Actually, we bought it
Yeah.
for him. He uses it all the time. So
Yeah, so to each his own. And then of course came the AirPods. The AirPods were another really big hit that ended up driving more further revenue growth. But this is what Apple does, right? Apple every so often, every few years will come up with a new product that everyone at first is just like, do I really need this? This is stupid. Why would I need a watch, especially if I have a phone? Like this is ridiculous. And then
Yeah,
it becomes
that's-
something that everyone
yes,
wants.
that was the argument.
Yeah.
Look, I have thousands of dollars of Apple products, and all my friends in my business use Apple. I've had more arguments about Apple with my friends than anything else. And every single time, like when they first got rid of the headphone adapter, Apple's done. This is ridiculous. It was adapter gate. What are they doing? Then when they came out with the AirPods, it was like the same deal over and over and over. And now none of that means anything. When they got rid of the ports on the laptops, it's over. Apple's done. And they consistently.
that's why I have a dongle here.
What do you have?
Yeah, a dongle that I have to
They
connect
did.
everything to.
Right. They not only got rid of it, and then they started selling you dongles.
Then I bought $100 dongle.
This is
Okay, I
people
wanna-
say no one's gonna pay for it, but
I want
I
to
actually love our Metaverse Apple Meta arguments because I think you hate Apple secretly as much as I hate.
No, I love Apple. Are you crazy? I have Apple products all over the place. I love Apple. I'm just saying there's a room for another player. You're just so one-sided on this. It's crazy.
Yeah, Carlos, we know you think Zucks is like poisoning.
Yeah,
teenage
you're all about
girls.
Zucks.
But listen, but
If
like I
Elon
said
was
to
running,
you-
hold on. If
No, no.
Elon ran Meta right now, he'd be like, "Oh my God,
No,
we
no,
gotta
no.
buy, we gotta
No,
buy Meta,
because
dude. We gotta buy
because it's
Meta.
not-
He's
because
merging it
it's
with
not-
Twitter.
It's
We
not
gotta
the
do it."
CEO. It's not the CEO. It's the
course
effect
it's
of
the
the it's the
CEO.
effect of business. I think I've said this before. One thing I always ask myself for any company that I invest in is, what does it look like if that company is completely successful? Is it better or worse for the world? Right. This is why I want to invest in an oil company. What does the world look like if
Carlos, that's the problem
Chevron's
with social
producing mega
media.
profit?
That's not a problem with Facebook. That's a problem with
Yeah,
social.
same problem with
Yeah,
Twitter,
but Facebook was the pioneer of that, didn't it? That took it to the
I
level.
thought
that it's
Friendster
at
was the pioneer of that. But
Well, they
I'll
were
be
the
honest,
pioneer, but they
I thought
weren't.
the
they
internet
weren't-
was the pioneer. Of
No,
this,
what
to
made
be
it
honest.
addicting? What made it addicting is when Meta, when Facebook at the time needed to monetize it. It was creating the echo chambers that kept people and made it addicting. That's the difference. No kid,
But
10,
Twitter's an
12,
echo
even a
chamber
40-year-old.
too.
yeah, FaceTime Home. Yes, I use Oculus. That's what I keep going to. These
But
guys
he uses it
don't
once a
actually use
week, and
it.
he thinks that he uses it
Dude,
once a week. That's
you
not
know,
enough.
I have
he
a
uses
job-
to
I have a
choke the
job.
chicken every night. That's what he does.
That's what it is. He doesn't
I
want to
tried
say
that
it.
one time. VR porn is I'm telling you, they are close to perfecting this. They are. And we
All right,
didn't
so we
mention
went
that, but hold on.
37 minutes before we got
Hold on.
demonetized.
Porn is a big part of the internet in general.
Oh, it
VR
Yeah, but it's not a
porn.
big part for the metaverse. Not you think Facebook's gonna have public shareholders monetizing adult pornography?
Facebook is
for
going to
their biggest-
monetize it somehow.
They're gonna
not
monetize
gonna
it.
How?
do it.
They're gonna allow it on their
publicly.
app store. Apple
course
doesn't
It
even allow
won't,
it.
it
on
won't
the
be
app
that
store.
way. It won't be that way.
But
It won't be
even
that way.
but none of it doesn't have to be on the app store for someone to develop for it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
look,
and
joking
Pornhub doesn't
aside,
make as much money. Pornhub
ad
makes
network.
nothing compared to Facebook. To get like Pornhub gets 2 billion of visits a month. I checked on their site traffic.
he's like, I
Facebook gets
checked.
10
I
billion.
checked his.
Right. I checked the
I
site
know,
traffic.
inside
I went to the
you
stats.
check.
Oh, he got caught out there.
Ahmed does a lot of Ahmed does a lot of
Guilty.
Pornhub research. You know, you ever heard? It's like, let me do some research on Pornhub. Let me look at their traffic volume. Like,
Yeah,
come
you
on.
guys got to see the Netflix. Have you guys watched it yet? Since I
Which
recommended it,
Which one?
the Netflix documentary on Pornhub.
Oh, Ryan, come on! You got to put that one. You got to put that comment up. That was a good pun. He said one would say it's a good growth story. I like that.
I'm
Good
not
for you.
joking. This is going to be a real thing. It's a little bit hard with the controllers right now, but Meta's,
I'm about to show you guys.
Yeah, but you don't
know
think.
the
Look,
controller.
all
Look at this.
joking aside,
This
What
is
is
this
this?
is their traffic.
Yeah.
They got 2.5 billion. Vitaly was 2.4 billion of those in March.
right?
And then now let's go to Facebook. That's what I'm saying.
Oh
Like,
my
I don't
God.
get how they're going to monetize this because it's not even a big enough market for them to care versus all the stuff they have to deal with. Meta gets 17 billion. This is insane.
Okay,
Like, that's a lot.
but
Okay?
but I mean,
It's
look,
just-
you don't think
porn is nothing.
you don't think the company that makes Fleshlight is working on a VR version of like a Fleshlight?
Even if they are, I don't think Meta wants the backlash of shareholders buying a company that's selling that. Like, I don't think they want to deal with that. That's why
I
Apple
don't
doesn't.
think they
Apple,
actually.
you know how much money Apple could make if they just allowed a porn app on the App Store? Like, do you know how many downloads that thing? Like, but they don't allow it for a reason, right? This is
But it
Twitter.
doesn't have to be on the App Store for you to be able to download and install it.
No, yes, it does. It has to be on Meta's VR Horizons, whatever.
no
developer-
Horizons. You guys don't know shit about Oculus. This is the problem. Like, you haven't actually used it. Start
no
using
one
it
cares
and then
about
start
it,
talking to me
Vitaly. I'm
about it.
sorry, because no one cares about it.
Yeah, no,
Okay,
really, no
sure.
one gives a
No
shit.
one
about
gives
that.
a
Like,
shit
literally
about
no one
it,
cares.
Once again, when 2030 rolls around, that's when we'll have this discussion properly.
All right.
We'll see if nobody cared.
Please let us know in the chat if Vitaly
Just
should do the
FYI,
next.
just FYI, when I was on the internet in the 80s on BBSs, okay, before Mozilla, the browser came out, and Mosaic too, I was actually on BBSs, okay, computer science nerd for a long time. Everybody said, why are you doing this? Nobody cares about this, okay? Nobody understood why I was even on a BBS, why this was important.
Okay, but
you
this
don't
is
understand
BBC.
because you
No,
see
no, but
version
wait,
1 of the
but this is-
technology,
but
and
this
you
is
don't
diff-
understand it.
Yeah, but this is
In
different.
10
because
years, it'll be different. You'll understand it.
But this is different. Back when you were on that very, very early infant software and infant hardware,
I am going to
nobody
make a
knew about it.
tutorial on how to download porn on Oculus.
I was going to say, should Vitaly do the next podcast
Guys,
wearing the
Freelancer
VR
Finance
goggles?
tomorrow,
Like, just have him on for an hour.
3D porn tutorial, okay?
That's how you make the channel explode. That's what you got to do.
We'll make
Yeah,
something.
Okay,
explode.
so I want to hold on. I want to put up a comment real quick to transition.
Thank you,
us into
Myra.
this will get us into end phase. This is from Chalk Talk HD.
Yeah.
The question is, does it affect you guys at all when people trash on your picks? Ever let that get to you, or is your conviction too strong? So end phase has been trashed on past
Makes
couple
no
days.
difference.
Meta has been trashed. How do you guys deal with that psychologically?
How do you deal with it? You're always asking the questions. I'm asking the questions now. How do you feel when people trash your picks?
Well,
Palantir.
you're the only one. You're the only one who
Can't get
trashes.
more lampooned than Palantir.
Palantir
I mean,
sucks.
I'm at skin when it comes to Palantir.
Ahmed is like the Palantir Thanos. Like, it just makes him stronger, you know? No, but seriously.
No, because these are the types of people that I have investing in my company. If you guys haven't seen this thread yet, these are the types of people that I get to interact with. The Palantir retail investing community is the smartest fucking community on the planet. And Chris is a part of it, even though he's not fully bought
Are
in
they?
yet.
Are they really?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Oh my goodness.
Shots fired. Shots fired.
They are. They're smart, man. I'm not saying you guys are dumb. I'm just saying you guys aren't a part of it, so you're not that smart.
Well, the thing is, I'm smart enough to say that I don't know how successful Palantir will be in 10 years. I have no idea.
Neither do I. I don't say it's going to be successful. I say it has a good shot to really
I would say, I'll go on record. I will say, I don't think Palantir will ever go out of business, and I think they will be profitable. But I don't know that it's necessarily going to translate to retail or shareholders. That's what I'm not sure about. That's what I don't know about it.
It's going to translate to Carp's pocket.
Huh?
Translate to Carp's pocket.
Well, it's like, every time he's pushed, he always can fall back on, well, we can't talk about that because of the sensitive nature.
Wait, real quick. I actually want to bring something up real quick. Carl, so this is a news article that just came out Palantir. You know, you say they're like an evil spy company. You know, they're giving all their software to Ukraine for free. Like,
to spy on them.
They're not. No. But
I mean,
they haven't made it.
Why are they doing that then? Why? Because
they're good people.
Because they can't.
They're a good company.
When you listen to Carp, do you think Carp is a good person when you actually just listen to Carp talk? Is that what comes across? Like, oh, that's a good person.
Why do you think he's a bad person?
I'm not saying he's a bad person, but does it come across like this is a good person?
Yeah, I see. I think he wants to protect Western values. Like, I think that's good.
No, it doesn't come across that he's an actual good person. I know you believe
in that stuff.
No,
I do believe in it, and I'll say this: that last interview that he did on CNBC, I actually wanted to do this. I actually wanted to do a pod with Vitaly to break down the body language on that. There was a couple of interviews recently. The one with Google on the 60 Minutes, the Carp one on CNBC, and that recent Tucker Carlson interview with Elon Musk were so telling. 3 different CEOs being asked really hard questions, and my takeaway from that interview with him on CNBC, it was what's his name, Palantir, Carp. I think he was on CNBC. Was that what he was on? It actually made me like him as a person better, but not trust the company more. Like, as a person, as an individual, I saw a little bit more of him as a person, but I just don't trust the company. I don't trust that what they're telling you the company is doing is what it's really doing. I do believe, like, Ross Gerber went off. Listen, Ross Gerber went off on them, and I think he spit some facts on what that company is really about.
So you think that? Wait. So you think they're Nazi Germany? Because that's what Ross.
No, I'm not thinking that Nazi Germany. I don't.
Okay, so then you better walk back those comments, my guy, because that's the hell of a thing to say.
What Ross Gerber said is, it's
did he just say Nazi Germany? I missed that.
No. What I heard
was Ross Gerber called them. He said they're Nazi Germany. That's what he called them.
What I heard Ross Gerber say was that's
why they had to take. That's why Dave Lee had to take down the podcast, because he thought Ross Gerber would get sued for defamation from Palantir, because that's how
it wasn't. Well, then it must have been a different one. It wasn't that interview. It was an interview he did with somebody that I'd never seen. It was like a small podcast, and he's basically saying, "Look, Alex Karp is not your friend. They have files on everybody. They are spying on everybody, and if they're only making business in war, we're going to have more war."
How do we switch to this? It's not even part of our topic today.
No,
Because
we
you
talk
know,
about
oh,
okay.
because
So
somebody asked about conviction in companies, and I have to say, as much as we joke and shit on Palantir, you do handle it in stride, and you do, you just accept it, and it's fine. It doesn't affect anything.
Yeah,
I don't
and
think
it's not supposed to affect you. You're supposed to
yeah.
believe in what you believe. You did your
you're not
research.
supposed to rage tweet about it, and then you're
Oh,
not
Jesus
supposed
Christ.
to.
we don't
You're
we
not
don't rage.
supposed to.
Do we rage tweet? We don't trash
I've never
Palantir.
rage tweeted about Palantir. Okay, anyway, are we talking about Enphase, Enovics, or something else next?
We could talk about Enovics. They had their call. If anyone wants to watch, I did a live stream on their Q1 2023 call today.
What was the TLDR?
The TLDR, guys, don't even watch it. I'll just tell you everything.
It
Right
was,
now.
I turned it on for a minute and I was like, I'm watching. But
No, these guys, it's kind of amazing. I'll give you the Enovics who doesn't know. They make little batteries, silicon nano batteries. They have a break flow technology that prevents them from catching fire. So it's a cool little tech, but they can only make around 12,500 of these batteries. That's not enough to, like, one day of production of iPhone, not enough. Like that took them 3 months. You know what I'm saying? So they don't make enough batteries.
But
right
what were they saying in terms of scaling it?
So this year, 180,000 batteries they're going to make. But next year, when their Gen 2 line comes on in Malaysia, they're going to start producing up to, I mean, I'm not sure how many, it's supposed to be hundreds of thousands of batteries. Okay. I'm not sure if it's millions, but it's hundreds of thousands of batteries. And where their Gen 2 line comes up in Q2, Q3.
Did they explain why they can't? What's the holdup getting this thing to like?
Well, they have to first. They're getting the machines to Malaysia. They have to scale the production over there, so it's going to take time. It's not going to be a day one thing. The difference is they raised some money now, so they actually have like 400,000 400 million in the bank. So they have enough to start scaling this and actually make one line. They're planning for 4 lines eventually, but 1 line initially. Okay, and so they're going to start do that. I think Q2, Q3, But my point is, the guys in the room who are talking about it, you want to invest with these guys. These are like the smartest guys in the room.
Yeah,
no joke.
Did you buy any? There's like, because this company.
I already own shares with Carlos, and I think Chris owns some too.
Yeah.
You own some? Yeah, we've been buying shares, but it's
so
like
Chris, you have a position.
It's a spec stock, but the thing is, TJ Rogers is behind it, just like he was part of Enphase. And no joke, these are the smartest guys in the room. Like, they can convince you of anything. But I think they're
like
actually
the SpaceX guys behind at the last All In podcast. When they talk, you're just like, that's fact.
You're like, wow.
So in one sentence, what was the bull case from earnings that you heard today? Because the stock didn't move, but what was the thing you liked that you heard?
I actually wrote down some notes. You actually want to hear this? So,
and what is it doing after hours? Did it tank?
I'm
kind of hoping it tanked.
Well, I mean, look, it's a spec stock still. They haven't ramped. It's going to take a year. So this is all speculation. But basically, the bull case that I have from it is that as soon as they ramp, and they didn't quite say this, but 190 to 380 million per line once it ramps. So picture at the end of 2024, maybe 2025, that they're making 200 million plus per line. So now think of it in terms of price to sales with a company like that, right? All of a sudden, at a $2 billion company at a 10 price to sales, that's growing that fast and scaling right now at 100% battery production every quarter. You can see the scale can kind of get nutty real fast if they start doing this.
Would they be able to sell that many batteries if they produce?
They're
tiny.
Supposedly they have a funnel. They have a funnel over $1 billion of product that's supposed to be going out. We don't know all the companies. I think Samsung is one of those companies who wants their product. So it's just an interesting company, an interesting play. And it's a small part of my portfolio. I'm sure it's a small part of your guys' portfolio. It's nothing big, but it's something that can become very big if they actually execute next year and this does happen. But it's tiny right now for me.
It did drop after hours.
Yeah, you guys can start leaving questions in the chat for the last 15 minutes. Chris, what did you think about TJ Rogers buying 32,000 shares of Enphase today?
I mean, he's always been he's been a proponent of the company. And if he's thinking that it's undervalued, then why not? Like, you want a billionaire who's involved with the company buying shares. That's bullish. Anytime you see insiders buying shares, there's a lot of reasons why people sell. There's only one reason why people buy, right? Which is why if you look at the Palantir debate, one of my core criticisms has always been, we're very undervalued. We're very undervalued. Okay, we'll buy some shares then. You got 1.4 billion in the bank right now. Like, since the DPO, how many shares is Karp sold? Has he bought a single share? No. Has any of the executive team or the directors bought any shares? No.
Isn't that kind of messed up that they can't do a token buy of like $100,000 or something like that?
No,
it's kind of ridiculous.
They won't do it.
Why do you think? Well, why do you think? If you said there's a million reasons why they sell, what are the reasons why you don't buy? That's very different.
Yeah, that's the point. That when you, I can't explain their logic behind why they wouldn't buy, to be honest with you. Especially if they're telling people that we're undervalued. Like an example is SLG. If you look at their CEO, he just took his bonus right now. Just said, "Fuck it, half of it pay me in cash, half of it pay me in stock. I want to be part of the future." You know, when you have CEOs, you have insiders saying like, "Hey, listen, we're undervalued," and then putting their own money on top of it, you know, putting your money where your mouth is, that's bullish. That's really bullish. You know, a lot of companies that I look at, when I start to see insiders buying shares, that's a clear indication that they see something and they have the most information among all the others, you know. So I think if Palantir, if some insiders were to start buying some shares, hey, that could lend me to say maybe Palantir, I need to reevaluate my thesis on it. But you can't come on a conference call, say we're undervalued, and then you're still selling off shares. You know, whether that be part of your tax loss or tax paying regime, whatever you want to call it. Hell, you don't even, here's the other thing. They all get paid a shit ton in RSUs. Just convert them to stock. Why do you have to sell it to pay taxes every year? No, you could just pay taxes out of pocket, but they don't do that. They just keep selling them. Go ahead, look at Palantir's sells every fucking month or every other 2 weeks. You just see these people selling, you know.
What's your response, Amit? You know more about Palantir than anybody here. What's the response?
I mean, look, forcing them to look. There's two things. One, I agree with Chris. I'm like, yeah, it would be nice if they throw a bone and they buy some shares, but they already have a lot of stock. Carp owns, I think, 3.5% of the company. No, that's like actual.
Well, first of all, you don't think TJ Rogers owned a big portion of Enphase? He still spent $5 million today. Still did it.
Yeah, no, look, I understand that. I don't have a real good defense of it. My only thing is maybe they see some more downside pressure coming, and as a result of that, they're waiting a little bit. Second argument, maybe they don't need to because they're focused on actual things like growing the company. That's not the best argument. I get it because it's like it's not a big deal to just throw some money at it. But the other argument is that, hey, maybe they are planning to sell it at, quickly, right? And if it's to $10, $11, a lot of them are going to cash out. I don't think that's going to happen, and maybe that's why they don't care about selling. But
does that affect?
I think they should be buying as well. I think they should be buying. So
does it affect your does that factor in to whether or not you buy?
No, because I mean, like, that's not going to be the reason that I get out of the stock, right? Like, I see this company being very big over the next 5 years, given the thesis I have on it, and it doesn't really matter if Carp buys another 20,000 shares. Like, that doesn't make a difference.
Can I ask you just like a straight, like, direct question about that? Like, okay, you talked to Vitaly. Hey, what do you think about what's going to happen with Enphase? And it's a very clear plan, right? A very clear plan. Like, we know what's going to happen with Enphase, or we know what we believe the Tesla story is. Can you outline what you think the Palantir story is using specific milestones?
It's very simple. AI is going to increase in its importance in the government sector and the commercial sector exponentially over the next 5 years.
General, like what are the milestones that us as the people on the sidelines that could potentially invest? Like, for example, we talk about the Tesla story, the $25,000 vehicle, Cybertruck, the Roadster. These are things that we can see, and you go, man, if these things happened, and you saw that we were talking about it a year ago, then it is following the plan. What specifics could you give us, like, on Palantir? So yes, commercial and government contracts, but like, what could I look out for that I go, man, Amit said that would happen, and it's happening?
Besides, so I think this is one of the big things that CodeStrap said as well. He said the paradigmatic approach we have towards software has changed from a human-centric approach to an AI-centric approach. If that is the case, every organization in the world, just like when the internet became a thing and they needed a .com, is going to have some type of AI-based approach. If that is the case, there is the regulatory environment, the legal environment, and the ethics over protecting that data. That is going to be the core differentiator between all of these LLMs and all of these essentially models that are used to train data to be able to effectively get business intelligence. So, this is not that hard to describe. There are 3 companies that have IL level security 6 clearance with the DoD. 2 of them are $1 trillion companies, and the one is little old Palantir. The reason they got it is because, hold on, what they're doing with data from a security, privacy, and ethics perspective is monumental. So here's the direct answer to your question. NATO can become a $100 billion market for Palantir. Because
so what would be the headline? What's the headline? Like, another
the headline is exactly what happened. The headline is exactly what happened 2 days ago. Palantir has now established a regional tech hub in Lithuania in partnership with the Ministry of Defense, because Lithuania is part of the Baltic states, and Lithuania is like, holy fuck, we don't want to get invaded by Russia.
And I said, when Kazakhstan?
Like, Carlos, that's a big deal, right? Because they didn't charge Ukraine
It's
anything for their
great.
software. They didn't charge Ukraine anything for their software because they're making money from other NATO countries being like, if your shit's working, maybe we should implement you guys. And that's a very big market because defense budgets are unlimited at the end of the day to protect the sovereignty of your nation.
Oh, sure,
So,
sure.
You've
What
got
I think the problem is, once again,
you got all these different other sectors that can expand.
Right.
I think me and you, Carlos, like we gravitate to things maybe we understand more. Like it's easy to say like, oh, Enovics is making this battery, and then the battery will come out in 2024.
Right.
It won't. That's it.
Or we're like you said, they're expecting to make, say, 100 million of these, right? And we can see on the earnings call, they're like, oh, we ramped up, we grew 50%. Or like Tesla, hey, we're announcing the $25,000 vehicle. Or Elon tweets like, hey, FSD is
very
ready.
concrete.
Like
it's
these are
concrete.
things where it's black or white, that the world was different before that day and after. And that's what I'm looking for with Palantir, because
you're not going to get that. And you know why you're not going to get that? Because nobody understands Palantir.
That's actually the point. Let's take 30 seconds to read this.
We are at an incredible moment. I'm curious.
In 2021, I made the prediction human-centric software is dead. Just know it yet. He's been correct about that because ChatGPT is coding. As OpenAI faces mounting legal challenges banned in Italy, now with GDPR, it's clear, and this is your bear case for Meta, right? GDPR, Carlos. It's clear Palantir is the right framework to legally leverage AI to its fullest. Alex Corp has often said that we build products companies don't know they need. He has been proven prophetic on many occasions. Go to the Stanford December 2021 interview where he said, shit's about to happen. February 2022, shit happened with Russia, Ukraine. And this is no exception. I'm personally witnessing this sea change at the world's largest organizations. The fact that Palantir is so misunderstood by the market and technologists represents the opportunity of a lifetime. And I am proud I seized that opportunity. It's proving to be perhaps the best decision ever made. Now, before you talk, CodeStrap is a technologist. He's in the company actually working with their technology, helping PwC, this is public knowledge, deploy that software for clients. And so do you want me to believe you, Carlos, who's ideological about his poetry, or do you want me to believe someone who's actually working with the tech and sees the
listen, whoa, stand down, bro. Like, I'm not, you see, like,
that's not a shot at you. But just like your bear case is he's a poet and
never follow a coder.
No,
here's follow a coder.
No, here's what I want. What I would want to hear is like, I would expect that within a year, you're going to see X, Y, and Amazon adopts Palantir software and their sales triple, or they reduce, customer service issues by 33%, and they credit Palantir directly for it. Now there's a cost of not doing business with Palantir, and every company has to go on board. Something that I can see. Because a lot of the metrics you're saying are all.
FoundryCon had like 17 case studies. Tyson Foods, they saved $200 million. Tampa Bay General Hospital.
That's not going to get you the multiple that we're talking about.
I'm just saying you want examples. They exist. We need more.
What's the example? What's the example that gets us to these billion and maybe $1 trillion valuation? A lot of people, I've seen it on your Twitter. Palantir to $1 trillion. Palantir. What gets?
Okay, look, I'm not saying Palantir to $1 trillion, but I think
I've seen your Lithuania case studies.
What gets us to what gets Palantir to $250 billion? That's going to be in the news headline. You're like, oh fuck, I got to buy this company tomorrow.
Well, I don't think that, but as Chris said, it's not going to happen like with Tesla 2019. It just like goes berserk. It's going to happen over time, like a Salesforce story. I do think Chris is right there, but I think there are S curves within that story because of AI and because Palantir has the most legal and ethical technology to be able to take advantage of that. Remember, it was created after 9/11. The reason the government bought their shit.
That's what's still there.
Right, but hold on. Let me make one point here. No, this is really important. Let me make one really good point here.
Okay.
I want to get your thoughts on this because we're in this conversation. Your argument, Carlos and Vitali, is Palantir's evil spy data company.
No, don't mix up our arguments. We have different reasons.
Let me make the point.
Vitali's argument is about profitability and about.
Right. So, Carlos, your point is evil spy, all that CIA stuff, whatever. Peter Thiel gets often painted as this like right-wing conservative spy person, but
Elon Musk hates Peter Thiel. Right?
Well, Peter Thiel got him a lot of money with.
I'm just saying he hates him. He probably has good.
They're frenemies. They're frenemies. They're frenemies. They don't hate each other. They're frenemies. Yeah.
Let me make this point, and then I really want Carlos's response to it. When terrorism happens, a state becomes more authoritarian. What do I mean by this? Why do we get the Patriot Act after 9/11? We got it because the state was like, holy shit. We can't trust these people walking around anymore. So guess what we have to do? Right? Because what if they're playing or something? We have to infringe on their civil liberties. And then you get all this Patriot Act stuff. If you have software that is able to help the state identify terrorists, which is what Palantir has done in Europe is like unheard of. All the right-wing terrorism that they have stopped. It would be a much more, more authoritarian state if they didn't do that stuff. They are actually stopping the state from infringing on your liberties, because then the state doesn't have a reason to try to like hurt you, because they're using software to stop the attack from happening in the first place. Meaning when you finish, if 9/11 didn't happen, we wouldn't have a Patriot Act, which means our liberties, our civil liberties, wouldn't have been violated like they were for the past 5-10 years because of that act. But that's only if you have software to stop.
It's been over 20. And what I'm saying is you're taking them at face value that they're not infringing your civil liberties or that they're protecting your civil liberties. I read the Patriot Act. I read that thing, bro. It's a monster book. I read it.
Carlos,
I read the commission.
My argument is if you don't have software to stop terrorism, there will be more infringement of your civil liberties.
What I'm going to say is I read the commission report. I read the commission report. And if you read the commission report, you would understand how many failings there were at the top level of government to have that happen in the first place. So government failed the people on a number of levels, and they're also not the best allocator of capital. So now you put those two things together and you give them basically infinite power with a thing like AI. And you have to stand too.
No, but Carlos, you gotta stop.
Let you finish.
Palantir is what stops them from having infinite power. That's my point.
Okay.
That's the part you're not answering.
In the same way that we now know that essentially Twitter was a censorship arm of the government and basically like a two-way street. This is the same thing, dude. And you also have to also understand that we went to that war for reasons that we found out later were incorrect. I agree. Was actually a lie.
But Carlos, you're not answering this core fundamental. This is 2 + 2 = 4. If the state has more, if there's more terrorism, you don't. Okay, what I'm saying is you don't reward terrorism. The state has less of a justification.
What I'm saying is you don't reward people, right, that have proven that they can't, number one, allocate capital, and number two, be trusted with our data by giving them more. And you think that CARP is going to stand up to the U.S. government?
No. But Carlos.
That government and Palantir's.
Software.
Even the name Palantir, even the name Palantir, I think is a troll.
Okay, now.
Yeah, what a dick move, huh?
You know what Palantir is, right? You are calling yourself above the ranks. Yeah.
This takes a little bit of research because there's software.
Wasn't he the evil wizard?
No.
Software was built.
Sauron.
Finally had to mute these guys. Their software was built with the ability to not let the government have accessing reach to the data. You're but you're not answering the argument. Like, that's the core thesis that I want a response to. If their software doesn't let the FBI or CIA see certain things because of granular access controls, which is the reason their AIP is actually going to be used in the DoD versus Microsoft's version, that's where you don't have the state having the justification to be like, oh, we have unprecedented amounts of data, because Palantir doesn't let you access all that data. That's the nature of the software itself. Okay, that's the point.
You know what?
Well, before you guys keep going, fundamentally, this is a discussion around age, believe it or not. With Amit, he is a young person. Yeah. He's very idealistic. So one of the things, his core thesis when it's investing is about which company lives up to my ideals. So right now, Palantir is living up to his ideals. So that's why he is so targeted towards this. I'm sure that when we were in our 20s and we wanted environmentalism, we wanted everything. Tesla was like, Tesla's going to change the world because electric cars are the future and we want to save the environment, all this extra stuff. So a lot of times, depending on our age, what it is, I'm almost 40 now. I'm still in my 30s, but I'm getting to my 40s. I'm more of a realist now. So now I'm more like, hey, listen, idealism is great, but keep that shit to the side. Tell me how you're going to make money. And I think that's the difference with all three of us, where now we're not investing for ideals. We're investing for return, right? So just to preface that, that's one of the things that I've noticed with Amit. Amit, what you're saying is absolutely true, but it is a lot more idealistic than the total numbers. And I think once the numbers align with the ideals, that's the core matrix that we need in order to make money.
To piggyback off of what Chris said, you're exactly right. I never was able to articulate that, but that is actually true. And for me, 9/11 and all the things that happened after was my moment where it woke me up to how the world really works. Okay, I was on board. The Inconvenient Truth, Al Gore. Then you watch that election get stolen, and you saw everything that happened after that, and you're like, oh, this is how the world really works. There's a public narrative, and then if you do the research, there's what's really going on. And it's the same thing that I would say. I don't know how it is in your company, Chris, or even Vitaly can say for this, like in productions that we work on. there's a way that things really work that is not what they tell you when you sign on the job. The people
Carlos,
that don't last
Carlos,
long are the
my
ones that try
point
to
is-
follow the narrative.
My point is, do you think Palantir is part of this secret narrative of this is how the world really works? Palantir is in control.
I don't think it's secret.
No,
I
no,
don't think
no,
it's
no.
secret.
But my point is, you're incorrect in the fact that Palantir makes the world work the way you actually want it to work, not as an evil spy overlord company or organization, but rather as something that stops organizations from, and especially governments, having over excessive amounts of control over data that allows them to infringe on civil liberties. And this is after watching thousands of hours of Karp speak about this, and then looking at the tech, and then talking to engineers at the company, like, yeah, this is how they build the company.
I don't think that you are going to get any of this information by listening to Karp speak. Every exec at Twitter swore up and down that like the government is not involved in this at all. And now we know from the Twitter file that they were actually, it was basically
Twitter
the
is fundamentally different than Palantir, man.
But
But
Palantir is more evil. You're right.
No, the parallel that I'm trying to make is like every single executive at Twitter swore up and down that there's no connection between us and government.
But why are you comparing Twitter to Palantir?
Because in the sense that you have a tech company that has a lot of
that's not trying to monetize advertising. They're not doing what Twitter's do. I don't get your point.
Amit, all I'm going to say to you, because
I think Chris, you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm getting.
Amit, all I would say to you is watch the videos of Karp less, do more research on their balance sheet.
I agree with you, because the numbers have to be better.
That.
I agree with you.
Right.
I'm not denying
that's the key to a good investing, where you're watching the company and what they say, but you're also looking into the fundamentals of that company.
Yes, but also it's about being a little early before the rest of the world, before the numbers catch up.
Yeah,
right?
but I mean,
this is why I'm asking you.
This
is why I'm asking you. What is the thing that I see in the news that everyone goes, damn, this is why we needed Palantir. Right?
It's not going to happen like that. And if you want
the company, then I'm sorry, you're investing. That's dead freaking money. If you don't see what it is,
how can you?
It's like with Facebook. Let me tell you right now. I will know I'm wrong. I will know I'm wrong about Facebook or Meta. Right, the day that they put up numbers and they say we have this many number of
Carlos, hold on,
this many billions of dollars. I'm going to say, you know what? The metaverse is a thing. People
that is true. If the metaverse sells 100 million units, I think Carlos at that point will say,
I would say, you know what, I was wrong, and he was
wrong.
That's
so
what I'm talking.
That's
about.
an actual number he can look at.
No, but Carlos is already wrong, because at $88 they're at 220. He's wrong. They're up. Your whole narrative is BS. They've completely proven that they're a company that can grow and they have advertising. Yes, they're not growing on the metaverse stuff, but that doesn't matter. All you care about is returns, right? They're up 134%. You missed out on that return. You were wrong. You missed it out. But because your narrative about
short in a growth company, short run-ups and downs like that.
Yeah, sell your Palantir.
That's fine. I'm saying,
what do you mean short run-ups? It's been 5 months and they're up 134%.
Okay, but let's.
All right, I think we should move on or end the podcast. One or the other one.
It was a good debate.
No, I love doing it. This is like I think we talked about this in the.
You fought with me about Meta, then you fought with him about Palantir.
Yeah, since we can't. But what do you want to fight? You want to talk about Amazon? Amazon's a shit company, Chris.
Actually, Chris, here's a question for you. Right now, $1,000 in Amazon or $1,000 in Palantir?
$1,000 in Amazon, clear as day.
Right, it's clear as day.
Can we do Amazon earnings predictions? Yeah, let's do that. That's our last one. Chris?
I think they're gonna kill it. This has been the story of big tech, this earnings, which is everyone that you thought was dead is actually not dead. They actually have very strong fundamental businesses, and their earnings are going to reflect it. Amazon's earnings, everyone's like, oh my God, Amazon. You're gonna see AWS numbers are still growing. You're still going to see people ordering shit on Amazon. But you know what you'll also see? You'll see a cutback in CapEx and OpEx, which means their bottom line is going to look freaking amazing. And then during the call, Andy Jassy is going to be like, look, we took cost restructuring charges, but we're expected to raise guidance for the rest of the year, which is exactly what Meta did, right? So now the numbers on their expenses go down, profitability goes up, rinse and repeat. Amazon goes back to $150 a share by the end of the year. That's like a no-brainer. Like,
and then my calls print tendies. Remember,
I hope so. I hope so. Mine too. Yeah. You know, like it's ridiculous to think that a business that's generating $500 billion has nowhere they can just start cutting OpEx. One of the things, and Vitaly sent this in our chat today, you know, you see it. You see I think what was the thing that they invested in that they cut their entire division because they're like, no, we're going to be leaner. We're going to be more focused. We're going to invest.
It's their health division, the Halo device or whatever it was.
Right. So it's focusing on your core divisions that are making you money, investing in those, generating cash, because this way now you can take that cash and buy your undervalued shares. who is doing all the share buybacks right now? You got Google doing, we're going to do share buybacks because we're saving all this money by laying people off
Preach
that
it,
didn't
brother.
do shit.
Preach it, brother.
Then you had Meta doing the same exact thing, saying,
Amen.
listen,
Amen.
Amen.
Amazon is the same exact thing. If
But
you're
pass
not,
the collection plate around.
I don't know. I honestly,
Super chat this bitch. Super chat this
This
bitch.
guy, come on,
honestly,
he's our Creflo Dollar. This guy.
the last 90 days, I mean, or even 6 months, because we've been saying this shit since November. I mean, privately, we've said it to each other on our Discord and stuff. Be like, you guys, this is not the hard, believe it or not, this is not hard stock picking. Okay,
No,
this is actually
this
easy.
is dumb, stupid, working
this is-
stock picking.
This is shooting fish in a barrel at this point. You know, so if you're missing out on easy returns by staying in companies that are still speculative, I'm sorry, I don't know what to say to you. You know?
Do you think Amazon runs tomorrow, or do you think they tank?
Fuck
after?
yeah, they run tomorrow. Andy Jassy is gonna kill it, dude. Amazon's gonna come out. Their numbers are gonna be fucking phenomenal. Like,
They're gonna
In
whip
fact,
it
his
out.
letter,
perspective.
he had an
Yeah.
interview and he basically said, look, e-commerce is still like 1% of all the world's commerce. So he started going all through. And I'm
Okay,
like,
that part they've been saying that for 10 years. That's,
I understand, but at some point
they don't make any money off that yet. Until they make money off e-commerce, it doesn't matter.
dude, the whole
But
point
the
is
rest of the
we
stuff is-
still have not transitioned everybody away. Even though we think that we're on the internet, we're on Zoom calls all night long, everybody's still not actually on the internet. It's kind of crazy. All the businesses that are out there that are still
Yes,
mom and pop
that's
stores.
true. That's
We
true.
need to get them on the internet. At the end of maybe in 20 years, that'll happen. But there's still a long runway for AWS, for all the advertising that's going on. And where else can you advertise for exactly the product that you want? They have the best advertising. Forget about Google. They have the best advertising.
How much of Amazon is the portfolio for you, Vitaly and Chris? How much percentage wise?
About 5%.
I'm probably underneath that. But based on what Chris talking and all the amening, I'm thinking tomorrow I'm adding another 100 shares at least.
I know. It's like we were saying this. I just wish I had more. Obviously, like everybody, more cash.
Yeah,
more cash to spread it around. Everything is on a fire.
Go to that one comment by 2 a.m. Chris, I think you looked into VNO.
The one where you told me to go to hell.
Yeah. So Chris, I think you looked into VNO. Dividend postponed today. Buying if it hits $9. So this is where you have to really be good at just looking at when things get reported out. Some people are like, oh my God, they're stopping their dividend. This is terrible. This is horrible. You know, no. All they're doing is postponing their dividend until they know what their cash flow looks like at the end of the year. They still have a very healthy FFO. When you're valuing REITs, you have to use a completely different valuation than you do a traditional stock, where you're measuring PE and stuff. So for REITs, you look at something called FFO. Their FFO is really still healthy. So all they're doing is just, hey, we're going to be paying out this dividend instead of in small chunks. These next 4 quarters, we're going to pay out a big chunk dividend at the end of the year. And on top of it, we're going to use the money that we're not going to be paying out in the short term to buy back $200 million of shares in the interim because the share is so undervalued. When companies are buying back their shares, that's a good sign. So I would say to people, if you're seeing this market drop off, I'm probably going to be buying some shares of Vornado tomorrow morning. All right. So just
was that a REIT? I'm not sure what that is. Is that a REIT?
It's a REIT. It's
in the city, right?
It's a New York City. Yeah, it's a New York City commercial REIT. Yeah. The difference that VNO has, which is Vornado, is that they do have some limited exposure to San Francisco because they have a building there, and they have some buildings in Chicago, and they also have a really large retail footprint in New York. So right now, one of the things you're seeing is that, you know, a lot of people are saying New York City is dead. I challenge you to go to New York City and tell me it's dead. I mean, yes,
no, it's packed. It is packed.
And a lot of businesses are starting to move back.
How is it around Midtown though?
It's super packed. I mean, right now you're
I think the commercial buildings, though, I think that's where the weakness is. So that's why he's investing in while the stocks are down. But it is packed with people. Oh my God. I went to dinner. I forgot. It was like Wednesday or like a Wednesday. I couldn't get a seat.
Yeah.
It was
Where'd
crazy.
you go to get dinner? Where'd you go?
It was actually the West Village, so it's a pretty popular place, but literally packed. We had to walk all around finding restaurants.
Yeah, you have to go to put your name down at like 10 restaurants.
It was so annoying. And I thought it was like Wednesday. Who's coming Wednesday? Who's going to go to dinner Wednesday?
The mistake that some people are making is the same one that Kaiser in our chat is making. There's tons of empty stores everywhere. Like it's just saying there's tons of empty stores. Yes, empty storefronts. That is absolutely true. I see empty storefronts there too, but that's how the business works in that area. There are times where businesses are doing really well, and then guess what? People buy in, they do long-term leases, and there's sometimes where people are like, hey, listen, I don't want to risk taking on a long-term lease while there's market weakness, and they keep their store shuttered. So as an example, during COVID, you're not going to sign a 25-year lease with a business during a weak moment. So it's better to just keep your store shuttered and that lease opportunity open until you start to see a recovery in people coming in. And then when you do sign a lease, you sign a nice, healthy, long-term lease with things that are built in where you're going to be gaining rental income every month. One of the reasons why I think a lot of people see empty storefronts in New York City and think the city is dead. That's not the case. And this is where I think a lot of people they follow. Like, here's a guy that I like Louis Rossmann, right? He does Apple repairs and stuff like that. One of the things that
Louis Rossmann.
Yes. Yeah. And I like the guy. One of the things he goes to is he's like, look, the city is dead. They're trying to charge me all this money for rent, and I'm trying to get this building. And the thing is, there is demand out there for these storefronts, but they do not want to give up the pricing power that they've had, especially for a long-term lease that sometimes a lot of businesses want. If you do business, you're not going to say, yeah, let me do a one-year lease. You can't do that. You can't develop a business around a one-year lease. You have to do a business around 20-year, 30-year leases. So you're telling me a business right now is willing to sign you a 20-year lease at the market lows because that is what you're saying. Oh, you have an empty storefront. Why aren't you leasing it to me for a really cheap rate for the next 20 years? No, I'd rather keep my store shuttered until everything recovers. And that's what's happening. We're starting to see the recovery come around. Commercial real estate is starting to pick up too. You're starting to see a lot of mandates from businesses, including tech companies, saying, look, get your asses back to work. Otherwise, you're terminated and laid off. That's obvious to see,
One of the stupidest things we didn't do in 2001 was get the proper. We talked about this. We in downtown. What were apartments were like a third of the price. And My God, why didn't we buy?
I hate to say after 9/11, when we were there, we weren't smart enough because the people who bought downtown, oh my God, ridiculous.
Yeah,
they
could not get anyone down there. And now what are they sitting on right now?
So downtown. So this is what happened to downtown New York City. Okay, so just everyone clear. After 9/11, the entire area was dead. That was pretty much known as the financial center of New York City.
Yeah,
after 9/11, it died. So what did the city do? They rezoned a lot of the buildings down there for residential. Now you have residential towers all along Water Street in that area. And they're just gangbusters. The entire neighborhood is developed like crazy. Same thing is going to happen to areas in Midtown and the West Side Highway area, where you're seeing a lot more development. So what you're seeing is a transition away from a commercial-only area to a more like mixed use with residential and a combination of commercial.
Yeah, it looks like Williamsburg.
Yeah. And now one other thing is, if you look at SLG Green, they have most of their buildings right around the central Grand Central area. Grand Central area, what do you know? They just got connected to the LIRR. There's so much traffic now you can avoid. Before, if you were trying to get into New York City, you would have to take, let's say if you're coming from Long Island, take the LIRR all the way to Penn, and then you have to get on another train, go to your thing. Yeah, and then you have to and then you have to cross commute. All that shit is gone. Now, LIRR, Grand Central are open. Grand Central Madison, that whole thing is open now. So a lot of businesses are going to be wanting to be in that area. So I think with real estate, you have to be selective about the areas in which the company's assets are located. You can't just say, well, commercial real estate is dead because everyone's going to work from home forever. And that's it. And you just put a plain brush on it. No, there are definitely some commercial REITs that I would not touch in areas, especially in the West Coast, where I do see still a lot of weakness. I wouldn't touch that area. But if you're thinking about New York City, which I can physically see with my two eyes, and I see companies moving there, Citadel built their entire huge building on 245 Madison. You got to see this building, man. It's freaking crazy. A lot of
to Miami, isn't Citadel?
Huh? Citadel moved their headquarters from Chicago to Miami, but they have almost 1,500 to 2,500 staff in New York City right now, and they moved a lot of them over there. So I think a lot of people, they don't give New York City enough credit. New York City is great at reinventing itself over the decades. The other good thing is the money in New York City is going to drive the political change necessary for these these things to pan out and to do really well. That's how New York City politics works. New York City politics, ever since like fucking Tammany Hall, has always centered around money, money, money. Right? Even right now, you're seeing all these people like, and I'm gonna go a little bit political. You see a lot of progressives in New York City jump in and say, oh, New York City should be lax on this, lax on that, and bail reform. And now the bail reform experiment has failed. There's a huge backlash against these democratic policy changes. So now people are saying, no, fuck that. Support the cops. Let's get the cops back on the beat. Let's get the city back in, because no one wants to go back to the 1980s.
There was a podcast with Casey Neistat today, who's like a prolific New York vlogger, and he said the only thing separating New York and anarchy is NYPD.
Yeah.
Right. Even though they
imagine if AOC didn't block Amazon from building
Long Island
the Navy Yard. Imagine what that would have done. I mean, it's
the traffic would have been
and I'm glad I'm
figure it out. I mean, that's what they said for the Barclays Center. I lived really close. I lived in Carroll Gardens, and it was like when they put the Barclays Center, it's going to be crazy. Guess what? It's crazy for a half an hour on either end of the game or whatever it is at the concert, and then
I think Amazon is nonstop, by the way. 24/7.
It would just be a regular business, and
it would be great for everybody.
Out on the water, they would have built a waterway to go back and forth to Jersey. Most of those people would have lived in Jersey. It would have just been amazing. But for some sort of virtue signal, they ended up saying no.
You want to know something weird? Progressives have actually made more money for capitalists than anyone believes, and I think that's the
willful idiot. Right?
So here's an example I'll give you guys. So there's a guy in Harlem. They had this large plot of land that they bought, right? And they wanted to build a huge mixed-use real estate with apartments, but also include, I think, 20% of the apartments to be affordable, right? Now, the Democratic progressive lawmaker in that area said, no, we want it to be 100% affordable. So now this business is like, look, we can't do that. Like, we need to make money. Otherwise, this project makes no sense. So they blocked the entire project from happening. You're talking about almost like 1,000 apartments that could have gone to that area, plus another 200 apartments that could have been for market rate affordable people. And instead, now you've got literally just a flat piece of ground that's just sitting there. I think they're trying to build like a bus terminal there now because the land is technically worthless. So everyone always complains the rent in New York is expensive. The rent in New York is expensive. You don't let us fucking build any more buildings. You don't let fucking people make any more housing. What the fuck do you think was going to happen? The same people advocating on one hand for, oh, we need more apartments because the rent is out of control. You won't let them build. What? So it's one of those. It's one of those.
I fell victim to that because I was looking before I moved to LA. I looked to buy an apartment. And I was looking in Williamsburg where I lived, and there was this new building that went up, and it was amazing. And when we applied for it, like, we made too much money. They said that, all the apartments were filled, and I think it was like the first 2 floors were, like you said, affordable housing. But then you had backlash from the other people in the building against those that were getting it for affordable. Because I mean, the threshold was so damn low that people, it started to become an issue between someone like on the floor above you paying 5 times what you're paying on the floor below you. It didn't work out well.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of issues around how you can make housing very inclusive. My biggest thing with inclusive housing is build more housing. The more houses you build, the lower the price gets on the housing existing inventory. If you limit inventory, all you're doing is getting prices to go up, up, and up. That's what I think. I mean, I don't think there should be unlimited housing where you just fucking let people build skyscrapers in the middle of nowhere. Like, no, you need to have some level of control based on some environmental regulations that are out there. But you also can't stand in the way of progress and then call yourself a progressive. Like, progress is the city gets bigger, the city's tax revenue gets bigger, you have more money,
the jobs, right?
Yeah.
The jobs
that are progressive and stop progress. That's a bar.
But it's because for some of those politicians, it's more important the virtue signal than the results. That's what that wasn't for an example.
Well, it's also their political base is poor people. Like, that is the other thing. Keeping people poor in certain areas is their fucking base. So they're like, no, I have all these people that are in my influence that I am going to keep influenced and voting for me. So I'm going to keep that power block there. The last thing they want is more people to move in with with different political ideas. And that doesn't happen just on the Democratic side. It happens in the Republican side too. You know, there are certain areas like here in Georgia, we have a really big divide in Atlanta between the south of Atlanta and the north of Atlanta. Northern is mostly suburbs. They were proposing to build trains, extending the MARTA, which is like our subway, extending it into some of the suburban areas so that there's be easier access to the city. You know what the local people do? They said, no, we don't want it. We don't want the expansion of the MARTA. Why? Because it's going to bring the negative element from the city into our neighborhoods. So we're not going to let that happen. So it's not just like, oh, Democrats are trying to keep their voting blocks. No, Republicans want to keep their voting blocks.
Let me ask you this question.
Because that affects property values.
I agree with Turk.
What
We should have a shot clock.
AOC said Tucker Carlson should not have a platform. Do you think she was out of line for saying that? AOC said Tucker Carlson should.
I think she's saying that. I think she's saying that again to defend. No, he absolutely should have. You know, look, he was the only anti-war voice, and regardless of what the public statement is about, the reason why Tucker was taken off the air is the comments that he made. I think it was 2 or 3 days before about the corrupt advertising. Did you see that segment? Yeah. The segment he did about corrupt advertising. He wasn't talking about Fox News directly, but we knew he was talking about Fox News. He was calling CNN and the liberal media out for all of the basically pushing the drugs for COVID and for the vaccines for companies that were advertising on the network. And he was saying that this is a level of corruption that we shouldn't have in our mainstream. We should be able, and the other part of it was they were shutting down anybody that was speaking against it. And apparently some of the heads of drug companies were really not happy. And there's apparently infighting in the Murdoch family over control, I guess, looking for a successor. And they wanted to get rid of Tucker. So this was a perfect way to do it.
Going to Chris's point about being progressive, I just didn't get. I'm like, if you're a progressive, you're supposed to want people to speak freely and for a society to be democratic. And she's like, yeah, he shouldn't have a platform. And I'm just like, wait, like what? Like you're because in America,
she's a leftist. I think
she's a leftist. She's one of the
different than a progressive.
She's actually said before that like words equate violence. When you say that words equate violence, or when you demonize someone else's opinion, it actually, or villainize them, it allows you all sorts of things that you can do to shut down that person's speech. And so I think this is an extension of that. I think she would be afraid of what he would have to say. She would never debate him. He would crush her in a debate.
All right. So have we answered all the questions?
Yes.
No, we have one more question.
Right. Everyone should have a platform. Everyone should have a platform.
One more thing. Tesla, it was at 154, 155 today. 2 questions. Are you buying the dip? And do you see this bad boy going to 130? Chris, someone you responded to on Twitter said it's going to 23. Do you is there any logic there? I'm gonna pull that up.
His logic was
23.
Well, that's what BMW.
If Vitaly and I didn't sell, it wouldn't go to 23. You know what I mean?
Like, if we sold, it would go to 23.
No, I'm saying we would have
this
to sell.
This guy has 116,000 followers. Okay, on Twitter. Right. Tesla below 100 before July and below 23 within 12 months.
Okay, but look at what he says. It's BMW sells more cars. He thinks it's a car company, so yes, it's overvalued. Next.
So no.
As soon as you hear a dumb argument like that, you move on.
So I had to reply. I said, "Doesn't BMW have almost 56 billion in debt right now?" You know, like that logic.
And what did he say? What's the answer?
I don't know. I didn't even check. But the logic to try to scrape together 2 different companies, but that without looking at even the core fundamental business, like operating leverages and also balance sheet, makes no sense. So you cannot value Tesla the same as valuing a BMW, even though the industries look like they're the same. You're completely negating the charging infrastructure that Tesla has, the Megapack infrastructure that Tesla has.
It's saying when the iPhone came out, it's saying, but Apple's market cap is so much bigger than Motorola, and you're like, you know
what's funny is
the same thing.
3-4 months ago, Chris would have said, "Yeah, that's true. That it should be compared to BMW."
No. It was a lot longer. But I mean, but
5 months ago. Okay.
But
look, this guy also thinks Google is going to COVID lows. He thinks Apple is going to 118. Like he seems kind of bearish.
He's a Q. And then, look, it's okay. But in the same way, like we just, you know what? I think we've made the case. I don't even need to
Yeah.
So
need to
so I think
pointless.
this guys like this, what they want to do, and this is just me saying, I don't know his account, I don't know what kind of conversation, whatever analysis that you come up with, there's always going to be people that are going to have the counterpoint to it, and counterpoint people, they want to gravitate towards their echo chamber. So there's probably a large segment of people that are Tesla haters that are saying, this is my guy, I'm going to follow him now. So
I think
that's what
actually
happens. Yeah.
on Twitter today, someone got was really out of line, had a really horrible comment to Gary Black. I think Vitaly and I both jumped in to defend them, and it's like,
What do
you
you
can
say?
disagree. They just called him names. Somebody
They're
who was
shitting on Gary
uber
Black.
bullish. They're shitting on him because he keeps saying that they want to advertise. I completely disagree, but I would never say that he shouldn't speak his mind or show his charts. It is kind of annoying, but let him do that. And we shot him down.
I don't think it's annoying. I actually love. I think he has a great take on the whole thing. But
I think so too. I just disagree with his conclusion, but it doesn't mean that
Right.
he's whatever that guy was saying.
he's allowed to talk. He's allowed to say what he wants.
There's a difference between being bullish and being childish, and I think that was the distinction I was trying to make.
So I'll give you guys just a really fun quote that I love. It's when the debate is lost, slander becomes the tool of the loser.
That is true.
Oh yeah, yeah. I heard it said as
Who said that? Was that a Chris Patel?
No, that was
that's anonymous.
No,
a lot of people attribute that to Socrates, but I don't think it was
Socrates or Aristotle. I heard it said something like basically whoever attacks the other personally first is a loser, is the loser.
Yeah, because you have no arguments to make.
Personal attacks are the sign of a losing argument.
I mean, this is what Don Lemon was doing to Vivek Ramaswamy. They had him. I mean, this is another reason he got fired. He started calling him all these names, and that's when CNN management was like, "This is ridiculous."
Well, apparently, did you watch the unedited, the full segment? Did you watch the full segment?
No, not the entire full segment.
Okay, there was a section in there when they were going back and forth about that race thing, talking specifically about why we had the Civil War, and Don Lemon had to ask him to keep repeating himself because he was like, I'm getting talked to in my ear. And then he pulls it out and he's like, so now that's it. Like Don Lemon is off book, he's a loose cannon. And I think it was the comments he made after that. I could almost hear them in his ear being like, dude, respect the guy or keep it. And he got him, he triggered him, and that was it. And
he didn't care.
And so do you think that either one of them, what do you think they both go?
Well, he put a video on YouTube on Twitter today. He's definitely doing something. Don does something. I don't think anyone's gonna care. But Tucker's doing something. I don't know where. I don't know if it's Rumble or whatever. I guess we'll see. Right?
He might actually show up on Daily Wire. I think
maybe they would pay a couple $100 million for
dude.
him.
I mean, after the whatever that $50 million that they offered Stephen Crowder for $50 million or something.
Yeah,
like that. And they had their beef, and now they're not.
It's really interesting to see some former media personalities actually take to secondary platforms to give their opinion. So one of my favorites is Breaking Points with Sagar, and because the thing is they're not your traditional media anymore. So they're not beholden to the corporate apparatus. And so I want to hear that unfiltered talk.
They're funded by their subscribers. Yeah.
I used to watch for Crystal, but now I'm like, Sagar is
and it's the same thing with I feel like it's the same thing with us and CNBC. Like the CNBC people, I feel like sometimes they have talking points that they have to cover. No matter what, they may think something different, but they're like, no, I have to cover this because that's what my job is.
Well, you've seen the compilations, right? The compilations of the same talking points by
where it's like the same
exact thing because they all have a script. Absolutely.
What was that chick that used to be on Breaking Points? The chick with the black hair? She was a contributor.
Crystal Ball?
No. Crystal, she's the other host. There was another one. I forgot her name now. She spit some fire.
All right, we got all the questions in.
That's it. We're done. First of all, we're at 294, but I think we had around 320 the whole night, or at least a good.
Thanks so much for watching.
So it's kind of crazy. 294 people are
it was me. My Palantir talk got rid of a third of these people.
No, that's when we had the most.
I see the comments, and it's like, look, if you get that, here's the deal: if you get that emotional about one of your investments when it's being challenged, there's something to unpack there, because I don't think that it should be. I don't think it should be attached to your investment should not be part of your self-identity. It should be independent of that.
So when Carlos and Vitaly debate Meta, they still love each other, and when me and Carlos debate Palantir, we still love each other. It's a fun debate. That's it. There's no emotion.
It doesn't. And it's the same thing with any debate that we have. I'm sure that there's things that you guys will disagree with me on, some things that I disagree with you on, but it's a healthy debate to have with your friends. This is the whole thing. I consider these guys my friends that I can actually open up and tell them my thesis and not be ridiculed for it, even though though Vitaly ridicules me sometimes here and there anyway.
Yeah,
You know.
Vitaly's the bully in our
Yeah,
group, and he's
100%.
not even that bad. So
100%.
Yeah.
But you
Not
see
that
it by the
bad,
beginning of this
but at the
video.
end of it, I still
But-
respect you.
Right, but you see at the beginning of the video that he can't take it as good as he could give it, because I came in hot with Meta. He got mad.
Well, that's because this asshole just dropped you in there like when I was in the middle of a point.
no, but he didn't know that you were. He didn't know I was going to say that. I just happened to be listening as I sat down.
Yeah.
all right.
Anyway.
Any final words you want to say on this Wednesday night? So we have one more day left of the weekdays for us to do Finance Junkies.
It is my wedding anniversary, and I'm spending it with you guys. So
What? Oh, happy anniversary, man!
Yeah,
How long?
She just
How
got
many
back from work. 5 years.
Okay, so
Nice.
are you going out
Congratulations,
tonight?
man.
I mean,
Are you going to?
we have a kid. You don't go out. We're not. It's also it's like it's Wednesday. No, if we could just sit down, have a cup of coffee or a drink, or or whatever like that, that's fine.
I don't
I
hate
love
the
it.
world, by the way, and thank you for being.
Look at what Kelly's.
She's reading that right
That's
now.
not what you said in the DMs.
Oh, that's good. We'll see you guys tomorrow.
All right.
Perfect time to end. I'll